What is up, down, and sideways, you beautiful people? We have returned to League Unlocked. Eric and Mark here with you guys to recap some oh-so-fun weekend action. And the LCS, you never know what you're going to get. If there was a 50, 90, 10, it's like 10% you're going to get a really good game, 50% you're going to get an upset, and 90% you're going to get an absolute fiesta. And I think we hit all three this week, actually.
Absolutely hit the big trifecta for the LCS this weekend. At the very least, though, I will say the overall quality of games, I don't think you can talk about getting better. But as far as enjoyment and watching the games and having some entertainment, I think we're getting there. We're getting better with the LCS
step up
so
for
far.
Sure.
The LCS content that's coming out is a step up. The content on the Rift, a step up.
And we start with that TSM C9 game. You had the two big matches on Sunday, and starting with this one because this was the match that sent Cloud9 into the 0-3 zone on the week, and it was a treat to watch this game because we got SKT Huni, Mark. SKT Huni showed up for this one.
We've gotten it way more than TSM bargained for when they picked up Huni, and the
contract's looking like a deal.
The contract on Huni and what he was supposed to provide was to be just okay, not to be providing SKT Huni levels. That is the dream that you had with this contract, and this weekend certainly was a heavy dose of the good side of Huni as a player that you want to be seeing, and that was a very strong thing for TSM.
You got to see PoE on control mages, his zoning on Victor. Some of the fights, he's literally zoning 4 people by himself on that Victor pick, which is a treat to watch. Lost is getting a hyper carry. Maybe he didn't have the hugest impact, but
it wasn't perfect, but at least we can say that he might be the most aggressive Kog'Maw that we've got in the LCS, using every summoner spell possible to try and secure a kill.
Yeah, he's just trying to keep up with the rest of the squad. But I will say this TSM roster looks like you see any of the behind the scenes with them, even after that game, Huni banging on the desk. They look like they're having the most fun that a TSM roster has had since the early days of that double lift Bjergsen roster.
And this is something that gets completely undervalued, I think, a lot of times by the community. It's always, okay, let's just be stoic, make sure they're playing their games and they're serious and they're getting their jobs done.
That's how you get burnt out.
Exactly. Sometimes having this type of family attitude, atmosphere where everyone's pulling together, trying to have it, gets everyone to do better and have a fun time, sometimes equals the best levels of performance. And as you said, very easy to see that it is that type of atmosphere with this TSM core.
If that's the case for TSM, then Cloud9 is a broken family, because with all the, Sven going down to Academy, now it's a 0-3 weekend. It's so weird to me because this meta, you even have to look at this weekend. You get Blabber playing things like Diana, Xin Zhao. This is when you're supposed to see MVP Blabber completely dominate games, and we're not seeing it.
We're not seeing it there. There is lots of, finger pointing that you can do at pretty much every individual member on Cloud9 at various points throughout this weekend that contributed to the 0-3 record. One of the big ones that needs to be discussed, and I think is picking up steam, is that discussion around King and Sven, that replacement in the bottom lane and the impact that it's had. And the discussion has been, I think on the correct path, talking about how King has been good, just not great in his replacement of Sven. But that's the problem, because Sven's good is great, right? And then it's the next level that he can also get to, providing that, if not best, second best ADC that we've had in the LCS over the past couple of years, whereas King has stepped in and provided average to good levels of performances. But that's a drop off.
King he's not going to lose you a game, but he's not winning you games right now.
Yeah, and
Sven can win you games.
Exactly.
So, if he's not playing at all this summer, then there's obviously something behind the scenes that's a little bit crazy. Just like Alfari, not playing games for Team Liquid. They could have used him against 100 Thieves because, maybe it wasn't Sunday having the huge impact, but it was Closer showcasing that, especially with Blabber in this very extended slump, Closer has clearly been the best jungler so far in summer.
And we're just going to completely forget about the other game that 100 Thieves played this
Two
weekend. The
games
one
this
that
week,
didn't.
yeah? Two games, yeah.
Yeah, just two. 100 Thieves was the only exception. They're on the EU time, right? Abadage coming
Yes,
through.
yes,
Only
yes.
2 games on the weekend, because those 2 games they showed up big time. The performances, the positives that you want to be seeing, and the best thing was, well, Abadage. If the first 2 weeks you're giving him an S plus grade, well, this week it was only an A, but everybody else stepped up to that S
He had
tier.
some
Talking
Lee
about
syndrome in that game.
it was there, but he had good moments in that game, and this
Sure.
weekend obviously is still important to remember, just not that very peak level of performance that he can get to, where we did see that with someone like Closer. And I do want to specifically shout out the bottom lane FBI and who he specifically, for me, who he this time, because yes, it is the bottom lane
He's
that has
carrying that 2v2.
needed to pick it up sometimes, and FBI has been the steady damage. It's always been there. I think Huhi this past split has been a bit up and down, but his highs have been incredibly high, and we saw it this past weekend getting to that level.
Set and Vayne, not the traditional bot lane you're expecting to see perform well. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these fights, they focus the Vayne, and Huhi's just murdering everybody in that 2v2. So yeah, 100 Thieves, 2 out of the 3 games this weekend, still playing at that dominant first place level. And we'll say that the first game was not just an anomaly, but they were going against the titans of Counter Logic Gaming. It's 0-3 for Cloud9, the big 3-0 for CLG, and Broxa picks up Player of the Week. It just warms your heart and fills your soul to see Broxa and this CLG roster do well.
What world are we living in? 0-3 Cloud9, 3-0 CLG. Man, it is truly Counter Logic right here to get this timeline. But this
looked
performance,
good.
the 3-0 was very good, and the things that we had talked about, the positives that we had hoped to see from CLG, talking about, Finn having, his way in the top side and what he's able to provide, that level of energy in that solo side. Pobelter, what he can do for your team fighting, how he can lead, everything. And of course, the cherry on top for it all is Broxa's Vi coming through and making a shift in the jungle. Twice it comes through, and it is a big difference maker. Broxa showing his individual skills on the champion, the mastery there, but obviously just what she's bringing into the meta and cracking it up with what has been there. Very good utilization from the CLG squad. And, you see other things like utilizing Galio with another follow-up champion. That's not exactly rocket science, but they're executing on it is the part where you got to give them points, because you know what? We've seen TSM try to pull out the same stuff at Worlds and not be able to execute on the simplest of combinations. So good for CLG, at least at the LCS level.
I think they've found what they need to be doing, what they need to play through, where you have this duo of Finn and Broxa, which is obviously the strength that we've seen for this squad. Pobelter on any of these supportive or engaged type champions like the Galio that you mentioned, and Wild Turtle and Smoothie, not the best laning duo by any means, but we saw throughout pretty much all 3 games this weekend. When team fights come around, Wild Turtle knows how to play them pretty much perfectly a lot of the time.
If there's someone who's going to find a way to make sure every bit of damage is coming across, it's going to be Wild Turtle in a team
fight. And he'll
fight.
die. If it's a 1-for-1, he's dying for it. It's worth.
He's securing it for the squad. He's been there. And his counterpart, Smoothie, I think, does deserve some praise, because he has gotten quite a lot of criticism, and I think rightfully so, for the way that his performance has gone in the last little bit. But specifically, this turnaround for CLG and how they're playing, some of the engages and plays that he is making have been very much up to that level that we have thought about a Smoothie in the past.
And they're still, 9 games below 500. But when CLG is playing this well, they're, especially with Cloud9 playing like this, they're the most aggressive and fun team to watch in North America, which is something positive for them. And if they play like this, they should absolutely be top 5, top 6 when the playoffs do roll around. Over into Europe, we had the match of the weekend. Not even just there. You might talk about all games this weekend. G2 versus Rogue. The first meeting always lives up to the hype, Mark.
It at least didn't let us down. We hyped it up for Summer Split. We get it in this first one. A real true clash of top level teams in the LEC. And it is G2 this time And I'm going to say G2 because, yes, every time it is a team victory, but specifically just a few members pulling a little bit harder than the rest of them.
Yeah, I feel like definitely this split, even you can talk about spring, you haven't seen all 5 players playing at the level you expect yet, which is a terrifying thought for this G2 roster. Against Rogue, it was obviously Yankos and Reckless who were playing, really doing the heavy lifting, especially, inspired game-winning Fiddlesticks ult against Misfits on the day before. He was irrelevant for most of the game, in part due to Yankos playing Super Ball in the jungle. Reckless had some disgusting snipes on Baron and champions on the Varus. And Wonder, you can highlight him getting picked off and caught out multiple times, but he did have 1 or 2 game-changing team fights on the Viego.
Yeah, and I think that is something that at the very least you can say that wasn't there previous weeks. Even criticizing Wonder's play, getting at least to that level, right, of a contribution in a team fight is a step up and step in the right direction. I feel like that still needs to be stressed though for G2 when you're watching these games. As you said, there are positives, but there still are these negatives that you want to knock out for a G2 team, a team that has championship aspirations in the LEC and championship aspirations internationally. So it needs to be able to fix these type of things. And specifically in the LEC, we're seeing a player like Broken Blade really step up and find a way to carry a Schalke squad. I need to see that top lane dominance from Wonder return.
And we need, Caps in the first game for G2 did not have a great Akali performance. Obviously,
that was a craps. That was absolutely craps.
And that's been the beam for a long time. It's just recently, the last few splits, it's been 10% craps, 90% claps. So we're waiting for claps to fully appear. But yeah, G2 moving to 4-1 and 11-0 versus Rogue in the regular season. But of course, got to better them in playoffs. So who cares about the regular season head-to-head? It was a good bounce-back weekend for Fnatic. They go 2-0, including the banger matchup, Bwipo versus Self-Made in the jungle. And I mean, across the board, there's a lot of positives you can talk about for Fnatic this week. Obviously, Bwipo's performance. Adam, I think, is developing faster than people even expected.
Which is massive. And I don't want to pull that word out just for nothing. Absolutely massive for Fnatic and what they can do this summer split, right? Because when you talk about the type of changes and you're bringing in Adam, most people are saying, okay, get what you can, make some progress, make some lessons from this split. The real judgment is going to be spring and what you can do next year, right? What you can do, how you tool up. But with Adam playing this well in this way and establishing himself as a presence of a top laner in the LEC and what he can do and how he can play with the rest of the team more so, absolutely, you need to be setting your sights at making some damage done during this summer split.
And Hylissang was playing right on the edge this weekend. And we've seen Hylissang take 15 steps beyond that edge and just speed his face up. But this week he was playing right on the edge and not dying. And because of that, I mean, him and Upset looked fantastic. Upset is right in the conversation with Hans Sama and Reckless for the best AD carries in the league. And Niski continues to quietly be this consistent force.
Yeah, I think he has certainly steadied his performance from the spring split where it was a bit more inconsistent at times. You would get still this level of play and some level of consistency, but there would be some swings. I think absolutely finding a better balance for Fnatic with Niski's performances this split. And as you said, the bottom lane duo, that's the one for me that, kind of also loses some of the attention that with everything that goes on in the LEC and let alone all the changes with Fnatic. You lose sight of just, Upset adapting to Hylissang adapting with Upset, and that continued development of the chemistry. I think we're seeing it pay off so far at the beginning of this summer split. And if they continue to get better, more in sync, that is going to be an unbelievably lethal bot lane duo.
And definitely will make Fnatic a team that can vie for one of these spots at Worlds in EU. The MSI hangover check-in. Got to do it for the Mad Lions. If Cloud9 had an allergic reaction to whatever happened to MSI, and they are just KO'd, completely feeling the effects. Mad Lions are just a little bit drowsy still from what happened. They squeak out the 1-1. Could have been a 0-2 if Schalke played that game out properly.
I mean, see, Mad Lions they had the rally point. They were able to get back up there and get back the health going just enough to squeak out a win. But certainly still, as you said, you're seeing the signs of an MSI hangover type of thing, getting back to it and getting in the groove and catching up to everybody else on the patches type of deal. You can clearly see that with the Mad Lions.
Yeah, and that's something we'll touch on, a little bit later with another certain squad, but it's just, I think having the patch change so much is definitely a big impact on a lot of these squads, and that's why someone like Damwon just said, let's just swap the whole roster, make everything be completely different so that they can get used to that. Mad Lions aren't feeling like these big favorites in EU whatsoever, but yeah, you feel like they're just kind of going through the motions to get back into the swing of things, and when the middle of the season, the last few weeks of the regular season maybe, that's really the only time you're being concerned for this squad, because they came in as a 3-4 seed before in playoffs and went on a run, no problem.
Yeah, right now I don't think there's any real concern, and assuming that they will find a way to step it up in a little bit, but eventually, given this next weekend that will come through the LEC, we'll get to see if maybe there should be some time for some panic, not exactly full panic, but realizing that if you can see some of these other squads like we talked about, Fnatic really putting it forth, Schalke with Broken Blade, Misfits, everything like that, putting together these steps to be competitive, you're lagging behind, Mad Lions. So it certainly is something that I have faith in them being able to get back into the routine, get back into that momentum of being a top level team in the LEC. But it is something that does need to be noted, that if they're complacent, there's going to be squads absolutely looking to get that improvement upon them.
If you want to talk about panic and overreaction within an organization, well, there's nowhere further to go than T1. Tyler 1, T1, the organization in the LCK, because we know the story of all the roster swaps from spring, and we were saying, listen, the Damwon loss, it's fine. You're looking great against Hanwha. Just keep the roster same as is, and we're going to stick by that. But when you get 2-0'd in the fashion that they did against Live Sandbox, I gotta feel like something's going to happen the next time they're on the Rift.
And this is one of those ones where I'm pleading with the coaching staff. Mr. Joe Marsh, if you're listening, please do not change this lineup for the next game. This is not one where we need to have an overreaction on the lineup change. Stick through it.
The change that they need to make is you need to give Kana a big red R key. Just make it stick out, a different color from all of the other on his keyboard.
You need to call up Dwayne B and get him to let him know about, okay, we're going to put in a timer. Someone's going to type in chat when Kana's hitting level 6. Make sure.
Level up art. Yeah.
There we go. Timer in all chat. Oh, what a mistake and blunder, and a very unfortunate one, because it was very costly in the execution for T1.
I mean, the game was over after that play, basically, in game 3, because, of course, not only are you giving up 3 kills, TPing in and just dying for no reason, but then you see the face cam of Kana, and you're like, no, it's over. It's done. You could see the tilt, and it is...
You're playing 4v5 at that point. My man is checked out.
Yeah, and it's just weird because game 1 looked great for T1. They're pushing in the base. They got a Baron. They look ready to close out, and then they just kind of unexplicitly lose focus and lose a couple of team fights. The game's over, and it seems like that tilt carried into game 2.
And at the very least, what we have seen in this, I guess, short 1 week from Live Sandbox is that if you are taking, your attention away, if you do let up, they're absolutely a team that can punish these mistakes.
2-0 Hanwha, then 2-0 T1. Huh.
Something's in that Live Sandbox water, my man. We might have to be watching a drastic turnaround for summer. Otherwise, this seems to be a little blip in the radar for T1, and I hope is something that is not overreacted to by the management side.
Now Live Sandbox tied, same record as T1 in the standings, which is crazy to think after the first couple of games. There's something in the Damwon Kia water, because apparently these guys can just play any role possible, and I know that Canyon hasn't matched up against the best mid laners in the league yet, probably in fact the worst mid laners of the league, but he is not only holding his own in an entirely new role, he's kind of embarrassing them.
He's absolutely smashing these
insane.
lane opponents. And it's wild because, again, you do need to remind yourself that, okay, yes, as great a player as you can think Canyon is, And as much times as you see, double lift, log in and, stream and play a different role, whatever. It's different at a professional stage level to do that and be able to execute in on it and to do it at the style that Canyon is doing it mid lane. And that's not even letting us get hype and talk about what Showmaker's damage is as an ADC.
They both look like they've been playing the role for years. Both of them. I don't get it.
It's just more of that damn wand magic, my man.
I feel more confident in them going forward the more I see this role swap working out. Again, don't know what the future roster is going to be looking like. Khan even seems to be thriving in this. Barrel seems to be feeding less. Maybe this role swap, maybe Koma's an absolute genius to be able to pull this off. It helps to have, the talented players that they do. But things are looking pretty good for Damwon. They're looking scary again.
It feels like Showmaker's been playing all this time. He's like, we've been pretty good. We haven't had an amazing ADC. What if I'm the amazing ADC? Canyon, step on in here. Working out like a charm so far.
It's looking real good for them. It's also looking real good for LNG. We said coming into this Sunday, if these guys manage to take down RNG, start 5-0, they're basically locked in for playoffs with wins against FPX, JDG, and RNG already. And here we are, Tarzan looking like one of the best junglers in the LPL, which we are so happy to see. Icon has turned back the clock. Ale has fit in seamlessly. LNG looked great. And RNG, the MSI hangover, it's in full swing for them as well.
This is something I don't think many analysts would have been able to say that they saw coming through for LNG, because the way that they have blossomed, developed, bloomed here on the scene, exploded, the way that they're picking up these wins. This was no mistake, this series against RNG, the way that they played, the way that they controlled it. Absolutely, this is an LNG team that I don't think we even need to keep the Dark Horse title on them, and what they've been able to do in the territory that they're going to be going to. They got to be put into legit contender status right now for summer LPL. And I tell you what, that is becoming an extremely crowded and scary,
it already was, and they still pushed their way in.
Scary list, and they're still fighting their way into that list to be another threat.
And now it's an 0-2 hole to start for RNG, and the problem for them is it's against OMG and LNG. Those are ones that you're expecting should be wins right away for them. They still have to play all the good teams in the LPL. I know it's an overreaction after 2 games, but it's possible, because of how insane the LPL is, that RNG becomes the first MSI champs to miss Worlds.
And that's something to say, because that's even counting on them actually having some level of bounce back, getting this performance, because
which I fully expect.
We know that they're a very good team. We know that they're an elite level team, even in the LPL amongst their, other contenders. But to have this little slip up at the beginning, right, at 0-2, and then talking about what the other powers are and how it is and how tight that race really is, it's very, very easy to have this type of a quick slip one week, the next week, oh, you didn't bounce back, didn't get it back, and all of a sudden, you're way behind the 8 ball, behind everybody else picking up more points for Worlds trips as well.
And I know playoff seeding might not seem important, but in the LPL, it's a difference between playing an OMG in the first round or a top eSports.
I love it. It's the Anakin and Padme meme that's been going around, where it's, you repeat what the second thing is. And it was, well, we got 10 playoff spots in the LPL. Oh, it must be easy getting a playoff spot in the LPL, right? Right? No, it's not, my man. 10 spots, and it is 10 ultra prime contenders, and I'm not talking about ultra prime.
Yeah, they're not quite.
I'm talking about the level that these squads are going to be at.
The LPL only gets crazier, man. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. Thanks for hanging, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.